Welcome everybody. My name is Julie Mock. I'm the Conservation Director for the Colorado Mountain Club. And this is our first annual Snow Ranger Summit. When we originally kind of envisioned this, we were thinking of an early season hut trip. We were excited to bring a bunch of people together. And COVID, I think, put an end to all our hopes and dreams. But we're still really excited to bring you all together virtually this morning. Throughout the day to talk about snow ranger programs. We at the Colorado Mountain Club partnered with the Uray Ranger District starting last winter to host a new snow ranger program down there, get people out on the ground, and we'll have them talk a little bit about what their program looks like. But I think, one thing we realized is these programs were happening elsewhere in Colorado and elsewhere across the country, and it would be really valuable to bring people together to talk about it, to share best practices, share ideas, share different kind of methods for approaching issues that we're seeing in the winter backcountry. And hopefully gain some new information and help us all do a little bit better job of winter recreation management on public lands. So that's kind of the premise for this today. We have a big group. We've got it's like 34 folks, and currently we had about 60 sign up. So I expect folks to trickle in throughout the day. I know some people have other obligations, so if you need to pop out and pop back in, that's no problem at all. We really appreciate the time that you're taking to be with us today. A few just kind of Zoom kind of housekeeping things. Because we're such a big group, we'll generally ask that you keep yourself on mute and your video off unless you are presenting or you're in a breakout group. Then feel free to turn that video on. It just helps with bandwidth. And we'll also ask that you filter most of your questions through the chat box. So when we get to a point where we're asking questions, filter them through the chat box. We will be able to open up some dialogue and have some more kind of interaction, but we don't want too many people speaking over each other. So we'll see how this goes. We're super flexible and really do want people to be able to engage in the discussion today. Like I said, we'd much rather see all your faces in person somewhere back in the backcountry, but we'll do our best today. So with that, if you haven't entered your info into the chat, please do so, and we'll save the chat. We are also recording today. We'll see if 7 hours of Zoom records doesn't blow up my computer, but our hope is to be able to post this on YouTube later so that folks can check it out if you miss any portion of it. So with that, I think we'll kind of jump in. One thing quickly, I do want to thank our sponsors for the Snow Ranger program. They help kind of provide capacity for us to put this Snow Ranger Summit together. Athletic Brewing Company, Black Diamond came through with a bunch of gear for our Rangers this year. Winter Wildlands Alliance is a big partner with CMC, and they'll be talking about some of their programming later today, and Weston Backcountry as well. So thanks very much to the folks that make this program possible. Really quickly, you all should have gotten a copy of the agenda, and we'll stick as close to this as we can. We've got some presenters that are keyed up at certain times, but we do have some flexibility, not knowing how long some of these discussions are going to take. So we'll hope to give you some breaks throughout the day, and things may shift around a little bit here, but this is just kind of the general overview. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and jump in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And we're gonna start basically with an overview of different snow rangers. So I've asked groups from around Colorado and across the country to talk a little bit about their programs. And so we're just looking for about 5 minutes of an overview, and then we'll have some time for questions. If you want to throw those questions into the chat, we'll kind of facilitate that process. We're going to start with Vail Pass, and Kate from the U.S. Forest Service is going to chat with us a little bit about their programs there. So Kate, if you want to unmute yourself and turn on your video. There she is.
Hey, good morning, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll keep it brief like you asked. I know we have a lot of folks presenting today. It'll be a long day for sure, but For the rest of the group who aren't familiar with Vail Pass, we're a 55,000 acre managed area using the Federal Lands Enhancement Act. So we use FLRIA to fund our programming. We're probably at one of the more extreme ends of how to manage a winter recreation area, in that we are very structured. We do charge a fee. And then we're also in the unique scenario of how we manage motorized, non-motorized, and hybrid use. So that 55,000 acres is essentially split into motorized, non-motorized, and hybrid zones about equally. And so we utilize, to a great extent, what we have as a partnership group called the Vail Pass Task Force. And that's comprised of 8 board members, 4 folks that kind of represent the motorized community, and then another 4 members that represent the backcountry or non-motorized community. And it's through this partnership and this buy-in through these different groups that's really made it an important and sustainable program over the last 20 some years. So right now, where we're at is I'm the program manager for the operations aspect, and we have about 10 rangers that we split 7 days a week to work at the pass, provide enforcement, visitor information services, search and rescue support, patrolling. We have over 20 some outfitter guides that operate in the area. So we do inspections, we kind of manage the use up there so that, hopefully people have an enjoyable experience for whatever mode of transportation they're looking to get into up there. So that's kind of Vail Pass in a nutshell.
Great. And for those who may not be familiar with it, can you just speak a little bit about where it's located and what kind of levels of use you're seeing up on the pass?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We jokingly call our district West Denver. We're within an hour's drive of the Front Range of Colorado, which, that's where the majority of our 4 million people, plus or minus, in the state lives. So we're an easy access point. The area up there is at about 10,500 feet. So it's got good snow in the early season and late season. So it's a really popular jumping off point for people. So we see, I think at last count, 35,000 plus visitors a year. And then, we have everyone up there from recreational snowcats, snowmobilers, timber sled, snow bikes, backcountry skiers, speed flyers, you name it. If you can recreate in the winter with it, we see it up at Vail Pass. So it's never boring up there.
For sure. And you said you've got 10 snow rangers. Are they fully funded by the fees that you're generating from the parking up there?
Yeah, and that's an important thing for folks who don't understand essentially the federal government fee structure, which is most of us. The way that FLRIA works is that 95% of the fees incurred at that area stay within the area. So we don't get any money from Washington, 0 appropriated dollars. So everything that we do in that program is funded through user fees, and that includes our staff. So yes, myself included, it's our user fees at work. And this year, we're really excited. We had a partnership with the Rocky Mountain Youth Corps. So we have 4 folks on our staff who are funded kind of as an internship program through them. And it's really nice to have that support too, so we can have more people up there.
Great. Well, great. Do other folks have questions for Kate? If you want to pop those into the chat box, or we can test out if you just want to unmute yourself and shout out a question. Yeah, any questions for Kate about Vail Pass? Cool. Well, I'm not seeing any in the chat. Oh, there we go. How does the fee system work?
So we charge, we just had a fee increase. So it's $10 per person a day to recreate at the pass. It's a 24-hour ticket that you can essentially purchase for yourself. And then we also offer a $65 annual pass. So if you visit 6-7 times, you kind of pay for itself. And that's essentially it. So we have 5 trailheads to the area. One of our trailheads, we were able to install an automated fee payment system, a credit card machine essentially. And then we have an envelope fee system with fee tubes at our other 4 entrances. And I can, I'll put my information in the chat box. So if anyone wants to email me later on or give a call, happy to talk Vail Pass anytime.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. And hopefully you'll be with us for part of the day too. So if other folks have questions, they can jump in as well. Awesome. Well, great. Let's turn it over. I'm actually going to bump it to Gary from Teton, who just asked our last question. So Gary, if you want to turn your video on and your speaker on, and I've got a presentation or a slideshow from you two here, Gary.
Yeah, one slide.
Yeah.
So you don't have to look at me.
Okay, hopefully folks can see that now.
Good. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great.
Okay. Okay. Julie told me to take 5 minutes and give you an overview of what's happening here. I'm guessing most of you know Teton Pass, but for those who might not, we're just east of the Idaho border, and the elevations run from the base in the kind of 6,000 foot range to 8,400 over the pass, with a peak glory to the north of about 10,300. It is easy access compared to you Colorado folks who have a continental snow pack. We are relatively safe, but there is avalanche terrain. You can see the map to the far right. A highway goes over the pass, Highway 22. So it's just an extremely accessible area. We had a counter at the trailheads going in and out, but November to January last year, 11,700, and a single day 611. We figure there are 150,000 ski runs that are done a year. Avalanches are of course managed by the Department of Transportation, Wyoming. They do a fabulous job with GAZX up there in cooperation with the Bridger Teton Avalanche Center. Most of the people that go up there, or these many numbers, go up Glory. Some people go south off the highway, and basically this high access area in a major resort town like we have leads to all kinds of congestion problems. And just to kind of run through the kinds of things we're dealing with are skier border triggered avalanches coming down, hitting the road. In some cases have hit vehicles. No one's been killed in a vehicle by a skier triggered, but we think it could happen. So there's a lot of discussion about that. Parking congestion is intense, particularly in the COVID year. In the greater area, we've got some development issues of people trying to develop some areas, and we're working with Winter Wildlands Alliance to address some expansion of ski areas encroaching on backcountry ski areas, dogs, pedestrian safety, dog poop, all these sorts of things. And in some cases, wildlife. And COVID, again, has just added a layer of challenge to all of this. The holiday was pretty intense. So what have we done? So the second half here, I'll just say, we've just engaged 6 volunteers. We have one person as a he's not a snow ranger. He's the pass ambassador, Jay Pistano. Many of you know him. And so for this kind of intense use, it's pretty wild. But the Teton Backcountry Alliance, which is a local org, has engaged 6 people to volunteer and help him. We printed cards to tell people what and you see it there, our backcountry pledge, giving people, particularly visitors from out of state, what to do, made signage. The Forest Service and WYDOT and the enforcement agencies has decided against closures because of legal issues in high avalanche conditions to keep people out of those areas. The local Travel and Tourism Board has just funded a couple short films for visitors. Parking, we've just submitted a $5.2 million grant to the Federal Lands Access Program to do some infrastructure, like improve the parking and turnout lanes and so on and so forth, but not increase the amount of parking because we don't think we can meet demand. Although we did put funding in that to create a shuttle system that would run from Jackson up to the top of the pass and maybe the other side. There's talk of avalanche sheds, but WYDOT has done an economic analysis and found that their GAZX and just controls is good enough. What isn't in that economic analysis is the cost to livelihoods and businesses when the pass is closed, and we're going to push to make that happen. So the Backcountry Alliance is working with agencies. It's been we're only a couple years old, but we've had good success. We're no full-time staff. We're doing it on a shoestring in this spectacular area. And we just want to tell everyone in our last 30 seconds that the skiing here is horrible. So stay in Colorado and Utah. So with that, thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I know there are a lot of folks eager to get into better snow. So we got a question from Jed. Can you expand on the Backcountry Pledge flyer that you have on the slide?
So that's a 4 by 5 inch little postcard that we had printed just the other day, and on it is, you see what the basics are, things that we've talked about as a group, and we just came up with these things that we think everyone should come up with. We don't believe, at least the Backcountry Alliance doesn't believe we can legislate or regulate responsible use, maybe to a point, but really we need a change in norms, culture, behavior. And that's what we're pushing, is for people to be responsible and humble. In fact, one of these films that's going to be made is about humility. And so the front part of the card is the pledge, and the back part of the card are essential knowledge and essential material. And we're giving it to all the shops in town and saying, hey, Scotch tape this to every pair of skis you rent and just give them out. So it's just one small effort by a group of people to get the word out, as we anticipate a lot of people coming to town and having no experience here.
Great. And Gary, if you'd be willing to share that with me, I can send it out to the group after we're done today, just as an added.
Yeah, I might be able to. Can I attach something to a chat? In which case, yes, I can. I'll just send it to everyone right now.
Oh, cool. Perfect. That must be a new Zoom feature. Yeah, and Gary, I had a question too, just about kind of the structure of your staff position and then your volunteers that are supporting that, and how that works. Is it, do you assign people to certain days, or do they just go out kind of when they're available? How do you structure that volunteer component?
We just did our orientation a few days ago. We just created a spreadsheet where people can sign up for different times. We have 6 people who are just local folks that we selected from a pool of applicants. Or they're not. Jay is and Mike are 2 folks who work up there for the Forest Service as as seasonal people. Mm-hmm. So they will work with Mike and with Jay and go to certain locations for a half day each one. And we're just trying to figure it out as we go. And they're not police. It's just being friendly and providing information, not where to go, but just the basics, and be helpful where we can. So that's how it's working. And like I said, we're figuring it out as we go forward.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, and I'll be interested. We'll have a deeper conversation about training and some of those things. I'm curious about what you guys are doing, particularly with volunteers.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Gary at this point? Okay. Cool. Well, then, seeing none, we'll shift to our next program. And this is actually the CMC program that we are running down in the Ouray Ranger District. And I've asked Cricket, who is one of our snow rangers on staff, they just started last week, to talk a little bit about the program there. So Cricket, if you are on and can turn, there we go. We've got them in the office, masked up. And if you guys want to unmute. We can't hear you guys quite yet.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
Yep, now we gotcha.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cricket. I'm also here with my coworkers. There's Caleb, Brian in the back. Brian's the other snow ranger. I'm just gonna scoot to the side so we're 6 feet apart and take this mask off. Great. So as Julie said, this is a newer program. It started last year, and it consists of 2 snow rangers, and we are from the Ouray district. in basically Southwest Colorado. So we patrol Red Mountain Pass, which is part of the San Juans, the Uncompahgre Plateau, and the Cimarron Mountains. The San Juans are pretty spectacular if you haven't been there. And just the San Juan Mountains, and we just patrol the north part, but as a whole has 15 14ers. And it's been interesting because historically, there's summer rangers, but not winter rangers. And so this program basically is trying to get eyes on what's going on in the wintertime. There isn't really data or historic numbers tracking that. So starting last year, we started documenting like vehicle numbers, visitor interactions, contacts, user types. So we track very specifically, are they splitboarding? Are they skiing? Are they snowmobiling? Are they snowshoeing? And we split our schedule up. Basically, we work Wednesday through Sunday, and we want to make sure we're covering the weekends and holidays. And we split it between Red Mountain Pass, the Plateau, and the Cimarrons. So we're getting a really big mix of user groups. Red Mountain Pass is mostly backcountry, splitboarders, skiers, and a little bit of snowmobiling. And then the Plateau is mostly snowmobiling. The Cimarrons, snowmobiling as well. And then we do patrol 2 cross-country ski areas. And every other week, we also work with 4th and 6th graders, and we do ecology days and teach them cross-country skiing. I feel like last year we just got things going, and this year we kind of have a better idea of where we're headed. So we've got great logs set up, and we've got our gear. Yeah, and I think we're going to collect a lot of really good data. And we're using the RIMS app, which is a CMC app. And you can do visitor assessments on it. So we'll go through the parking lots and see, okay, we've got one vehicle with a trailer. We've got this, even dogs, like that is an issue, dogs running around. So I think we're going to get a really good snapshot of what we're seeing out there and how to move forward. I think a lot like the Tetons, parking is a big issue. And there's a discussion, do we want to expand parking or just improve it? Because if it's expanded, there's more people there. And that's a complaint we've heard a little bit is, oh, especially maybe with COVID, like there's so many more people here and it's feeling crowded, and a lot of the people are new to backcountry sports. Just this weekend, we ran into 2 folks, and they were hiking up to 12,000 feet on foot, no beacons, no splitboard. They were just carrying their snowboards, and they were having a great time. But that's why we're out there, is to talk to people and, just casually and kindly bring up, hey, do you guys have beacons, and get that discussion started. So we're not out there to write tickets. We can't write tickets, but we're out there to be a resource to the public.
Awesome. Thank you, Cricket.
Yeah.
And I know we've got a couple other folks from the district on. If Caleb wants to just chat about kind of the history or the need, or I think Julie Jackson or Ken Straley, if any of you guys want to chime in, yeah, please take a minute to do so.
Yeah, good morning. So yeah, this kind of just birthed out of, can you hear me all right, Julie, with the mask on? Okay. Yeah, just kind of came out of necessity. We also have a mine that operates in our area. And so we have a lot of ice climbing as well as backcountry skiing along the road, in which there's a lot of traffic. So that was one of the big things we heard from the general public, both from the mine and from users. I think it's pretty unique, and it's a very dangerous road. So there's actually avalanche mitigation happening along that road. So that was kind of the first thing that I saw as being important, is that public safety. People were belaying on the road. People were trying to trek up, and we have active mining happening. So an additional thing this year that's been added to the program is the county itself is going to be helping with patrolling, and so it's pretty great that the local community is seeing the value in what we're doing. We had great feedback last year. And so they're trying to add to the program by putting deputies along that road whenever it's closed for avalanche mitigation. But yeah, it's one of those things that just, I've been here since 2012 and we just had no presence in the wintertime. And I just like to tell people that, there's still a ton of use in the wintertime, even though the Forest Service isn't out there. Like Cricket said, we have people in the summer, but in the wintertime, we weren't really seen. So it's just one of those things to fly the brand and fly the flag and just be out there, have a presence. And so this kind of birthed out of meeting Julie at a hut trip a few years ago. And she was super supportive of, of something like this. And so I just contacted her a couple years ago, was able to secure some funding that Ken allowed me to give to Julie, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And so from there, they've really taken it and found other people, found other sources of funding to help hopefully continue this program. And we just want to keep pitching it to other districts so that way, in the future we can have more folks on the GMUG and out in backcountry. It seems COVID has made that apparent that we need more people instead of just disappearing in the wintertime. There's just way more use in the backcountry. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything, Brian, but we have an additional snow ranger this year, his first year. And so, yeah, he'll be learning the whole area.
Yeah, so learning the area right now, it seems like a great program. I'm super excited to be a part of it. And I think with the number of users out here, it's definitely needed in the winter here. So many different user groups that are conflicting, especially the Campbird Mine, ice climbers on the road, a big trust coming to and for, and some areas where people are coming to climb or ski and don't really know what the regulations are, and obviously the backcountry education side of it. So just really trying to be out there and really be a resource for those individuals, as well as making sure everyone's kind of safe, being Abby savvy out there. Not skiing on top of each other with the numbers of people. So really just trying to get out there and make those contacts.
Awesome. And I can say from the CMC perspective, this has been a really cool partnership with the Forest Service. And I think a lot of other kind of community partners, as we see the program kind of continue to grow. It's not, it's not just the Forest Service putting staff out there on the ground, right? There's a lot of integration with the local snowmobile groups, with the Nordic groups, with the youth kind of groups doing education, that sort of thing. Sounds like the county is getting more involved. It's a really cool collaboration. We've seen, I think, good support starting to develop on the corporate sponsor side as well, so that we're hopefully taking some of the burden off of the agency in funding this program fully in the future, and being able to leverage other sources to continue to grow this program. So yeah, we're super excited about it, and again, it kind of gives us the opportunity to bring this entire group together to talk about these things. We did have a couple of questions about the CMC RIMS mobile app. It is available to the public, and we're going to talk about it in more detail this afternoon, kind of in our monitoring section of the agenda, and I'll give a little presentation on that. But Emily put a link if folks want to take a look at some of the information we have about the program online while we're chatting this morning. But yeah, we'll go into that in more detail this afternoon. Any other questions for the URA folks, or Ken or anybody else want to chime in? Okay. Seeing none, we'll keep moving. Next on my list, I've got Brendan Kelly from the Steamboat area. He's with the Forest Service up there. And hopefully Brendan is on and can tell us a little bit about the program they're running up there.
All right, hello everybody. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
All right. It's good to see some familiar faces out there. Wish we could all be here in person, but this works for now, I guess. So yeah, I'm based out of the Steamboat area. I'm the rec staff here on the Hans Peak Bears Ears Ranger District of the Medicine Bow Route National Forest. And we've got 3 main areas that we manage. I'll start from the lowest used area, which would be the Bears Ears area. So we have a snow club that grooms about 111 miles of groom trails in that area, and an outfitter that operates snowmobile tours there. Our next area would be North Route, which would be Steamboat to the Wyoming border. We've got a different snow club that grooms about 93 miles of snowmobile routes up there, and we've got a suggested non-motorized use area up there. And we also have a guard station that we rent, the Forest Service manages, and it's similar to a 10th Mountain Hut, but you rent the whole guard station and the Forest Service is managing it. And we've got a few different snowmobile outfitters in that area. And then our main area, which would be probably more similar to Vail Pass Winter Recreation Area, is the Buffalo Pass to Rabbit Ears area. In 2005, we went through an environmental assessment to designate motorized, non-motorized, and hybrid skiing areas. So we have a few partners that help us up there. The Route Powder Riders is our snow club in that area that grooms about 133 miles of trail snowmobile routes. The Steamboat Powder Cats is our outfitter that does guided snowcat skiing, and they build and maintain about 30 miles of hybrid routes. And then we've got a few different non-motorized, motorized, and mixed-use trailheads in that area. We post probably several hundred boundary signs up there, designating the wilderness boundary, because it's the Zirkle Wilderness is on the northern border of Buffalo Pass, and then also the non-motorized and motorized area boundaries. And we also have some snowmobile outfitters and avalanche education outfitters that work in that area. And then we also issue free permits to the public for them to operate within the hybrid area, because it's such a concentrated area of different types of use. We have this permit that kind of identifies what the rules are for that area, just to confirm that people know what they're doing in that area. So our staff, we have 3 permanent full-time people within my operations program that they also do developed recreation trails, all those summer things, and do the planning for that in the winter, but they spend a lot of time patrolling our winter areas. And then we were able to hire 2 seasonal snow rangers this year through Forest Service funds. And then we have about 3 to 4 winter volunteers that we put in our Forest Service bunkhouse, and then they volunteer 1 day a week to manage parking at Dry Lake, which is the main kickoff point to Buffalo Pass. That's our area that we have the most issues with parking, and it's the most concentrated use. It's a mixed use trailhead, so you have snowmobilers there, you've got the starting point for all the hybrid skiing, and then you also have non-motorized use. So we tend to get the most feedback about parking issues and user conflicts from that spot. So we put our volunteer rangers at that spot. We do have a few state parks in our areas, and some of the staff from the state parks will go out on snowmobile patrols and do registration checks for snowmobiles. And then of course, Routt County has search and rescue. And so that's about it for our staffing. Funding sources, our personnel and volunteers are all funded through Forest Service appropriated dollars, so we don't have a fee area, like similar to Vail Pass Winter Recreation Area, which makes it more challenging to sustain managing the higher use areas that we do, but we make it work. And then Colorado Parks and Wildlife is giving grants to our 3 snow clubs for grooming the snowmobile routes, and then the county and CDOT plow our trailheads. So some of the issues, this is going to be similar to some of the other areas that were mentioned, but parking is definitely one, especially as we're seeing increased use. Buffalo Pass and Rabbit Ears are our most concentrated areas. All those trails fill up. So day use, we get people legally parking down on the county roads, and then overnight camping in our parking lots, which inhibits the county from plowing. And there's capacity issues at some of those. Motorized incursion. So since the Zirkle Wilderness boundary is right next to a really high use open motorized zone, we get some incursion into the wilderness, and then the non-motorized boundaries. And then we get some user conflicts between the different types of use in particular on Buff Pass, just because it's so concentrated and it's mixed use. And then, you know, bigger snow machines, whether it's the side-by-sides with tracks or snowcats, you know, occasionally we have issues with them screwing up the groomed routes because it's a private person operating that doesn't know how to sustainably operate that, and they might, you know, make a huge divot and then groomed routes. And then just, of course, in general, increased use, in particular this winter with COVID and everything. So some solutions we've been working on, of course, through our patrols and volunteers, we try to get the word out about etiquette and the areas. And then collaboration, we've got a couple different winter groups we work with. We're trying to get better maps out to everyone at the trailheads, on websites. And then we use Avenza. We have a map that you can scan the QR code and get the maps for our areas so people know where they are. And then one thing we've been working on in a partnership with one of our winter subgroups, as well as the Steamboat Chamber, is a website that's kind of a one-stop shop for all the, you know, avalanche information, etiquette, as well as places you can go across the county. And so as part of that, also, we were trying to figure out a way to get information out to the visitors on the status of parking. And so originally it was talked about that we would have someone flip a sign up and down whether a parking lot was full or not, but that would just require a ton of effort from you know, people managing the sign and watching parking and stuff like that. So we tried to figure out an electronic version. Our ideal scenario was a webcam, which we weren't able to get in place this winter, but we actually were able to get a Twitter account, which we're piloting this winter at Dry Lake, which is our main access point to Buffalo Pass. And so our rangers and then the Steamboat Powder Cats will post updated pictures of the status of the parking, which usually fills up by like 9 or 10 a.m. on a, you know, popular Saturday or something like that. And that way it just stops people from trying to drive there if the parking lot's full, and they can go to many of our other trailheads. And other than that, I think that's about it. And I can post the Know Before You Go website and Twitter account just if you want to see that.
Awesome. Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, I was just looking at the chamber website where that Twitter feed is coming in, and it was really interesting to see, you know, basically the folks that are up there posting a picture, and, you know, parking lot is 50% full or 100% full. And I think a really cool way, yeah, just to kind of communicate with the public about the current state of affairs up there. One question I had, you know, regarding the permits, I know you guys are just doing free permits right now, correct? And that's just mostly just to kind of monitor to use. And do you expect like that would move to a paid permit or to a restriction on the number of free permits that you would give out, you know, to kind of manage the number of people?
Yeah, so as of right now, basically we're not managing the total number of permits. We feel like we have, right now, the size of our trailheads is basically what manages the number of use in our areas. And we're not looking to expand parking at the Dry Lake area. So that's kind of our management for capacity for that area. We definitely consistently get feedback that there's like, you know, we're on the verge of overuse, but you know, that's a common theme in a lot of places. As far as the fees go, originally going back to 2005, when we did make the decision to designate the whole area, we did actually talk about potentially designating it as a fee area similar to Vail Pass, just to sustainably manage the area, because, you know, it requires a lot of staff, and we've got hundreds of signs out there, and we just have a lot of moving parts and multiple trailheads that we're managing. And so it was talked about, and I do want to keep it on our radar, but you know, it is, anytime you charge a new fee on the national forest, it's a controversial process. So we're working collaboratively with some of our local organizations and partners, and we want to really get strong support from them before we would seek going for a fee. But I think it would really help, because it would just, you know, Vail Pass has 10 rangers and we have 2, so it would certainly could help.
Yeah. Cool. Then there's a question in the chat about what type of information you have on your winter maps.
Yeah, so in particular, the Buffalo Pass Rabbit Ears map, we have, so we have the motorized, the non-motorized, and the hybrid ski area. spots. And that one we have the QR code. So if you're at the trailhead or on the website, you can get it into a Venza. And that one in particular is the most important because it is a special order and it's enforceable that motorized has to go open in areas or be on designated routes. And then of course we have that on the websites and stuff like that as well. And then we also just post like the general etiquette and information for our areas. So if you're on Buff Pass, it's like you need to get the free permit, or we also like to, list our partners because, they provide us feedback of the issues they run into with, some of our groomed routes are really narrow because they're built on a steep side slope. And so if powder cats or other snow clubs are grooming, it's hard for them they can't get off the groomed route. So we always want the snowmobiles and other users to get off the route because it's easier. And so just some of those types of things, just to make the flow of everything work better.
Awesome, great. Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about maps and other kind of public resources. One question we were discussing with our snow rangers last week was, can you include slope angle shading on maps? Do you want to include information about avalanche, common avalanche slide areas? And I think it gets a little bit tricky. The more information you provide, you're kind of treading into those liability issues, right? Are you designating or implying that there are safe zones and unsafe zones, and maybe you don't want to do that? So that's where
I guess one other thing that is new is on the Buffalo Pass area, it's super popular hybrid zone, and it's always been just kind of like you just figure it out as you go, insider knowledge. But someone just recently is making a guidebook for that area. And so they're hoping that it's going to increase awareness around the safe areas, the non-safe areas, and, just so the flow works better for up there and people don't maybe get as lost.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, a lot of good resources out there. Cool. Well, thanks, Brendan. Any other questions on what's happening up near Steamboat? Awesome. Okay, well, seeing none, let's go move a little farther south in the state to the Gunnison Ranger District and Greg Austin. You want to tell us a bit about what you're doing over in Gunnison, Crested Butte area?
Sure, good morning. First off, I wanted to brag about something. Hopefully you can see this. 17 below here in Gunnison. So thank you very much for having an indoor virtual summit today. And I have 3 of my colleagues on too from the Ranger District, and hopefully they'll help me out if I start to flounder with IT stuff, etc. But I'm gonna try to share my screen. And let's see. One thing I want to emphasize with anybody who wants to try to start a program or do your own or use volunteers is produce a program of work. And I don't want to get bogged down on this too much, but basically it's a template for what we do pre-season, during the season, and post-season. And then one highlight I wanted to show everybody on our program of work, our 2 snow rangers, Laura Schmillen and Joe Laughlin, they always travel with 4 forms of communication in the winter backcountry, at least when they're out on snowmobiles and they're in really remote terrain. So I just want to encourage others to think of that part of having a Snow Ranger program. Okay, we'll take that down. And bring up something else. Okay, and can you see that? You can see it?
Yeah, we can see it. We're seeing kind of your presenter screen though.
Okay.
Which is okay, but
All right. Well, this one's not a really big slide anyway, so I'll just talk about it. But the Gunnison Ranger District is 1.3 million acres, and we're the second largest ranger district in the lower 48. I think there's a district out on the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest in Nevada that's big. But before you get too impressed with that, a lot of that does not host winter recreation. We do have a area south of Gunnison that's the Cochitope Hills area, Cochitope Park. It's kind of in a snow shadow of the San Juan Mountains. So we don't have winter rec everywhere. We have about 1,400 miles of trail, and around 350 miles of it is snow trail. And that's either groomed by snowmobile clubs, Nordic clubs, or we have what are called user compacted trails, like somebody riding from the end of a plowed road to a community like White Pine, etc. Again, shows the snowmobile clubs, Nordic clubs. We also have fat bike grooming by Crested Butte Mountain Bike Association. And then we have various outfitter guides, winter on the Gunnison district. Talk a little bit about staff, and they'll hopefully speak later in the presentation or in the day, but their two primary backcountry rangers are listed up there at the top, Laura and Joe. And then a colleague, Joseph Carlson, he's our mountain sports administrator at Crested Butte Mountain Resort. And then myself. And then we've also got 3 other recreation employees who help out periodically down there at the bottom, including our boss, Aaron Drendel. We've been doing this for about 4 seasons where we have presence almost on a daily basis. And we fund our program primarily not with a fee system, but from outfitter guide receipts. So for example, the Forest Service gets back about 3% of an outfitter guide's gross. So if you pay $100 for a snowmobile tour, the Forest Service gets $3 back. We have 2 large companies up at Kepler Pass Winter Trailhead that bring in a lot of winter revenue, as well as other winter outfitter guides like 11 Irwin Guides, and then a smaller company down at Lake City, Colorado. We'll take this down. We'll show one quick PowerPoint and then we'll be done. Whoops. Here's my dog. Okay, and this PowerPoint, Laura put it together, so I'm borrowing it, but we'll go through it pretty quick. Just some of the tools we use out there, checking on a guard station there on the left, Joe Laughlin riding a fat bike pretty much everywhere the conditions were that day. There's Joseph Carlson on a fat bike with his AT gear. He was out with the other Joe. Laura there is at a, I believe, Arrowhead Ranch. We were at a poker run that a snowmobile club was doing. There's a couple people out with AT gear. Like I say, just run through this real quick. Okay. On the side of this slide are a lot of the recreation areas that winter rec takes place, but I would say primarily our winter rec is around the Crested Butte area. And there's the map for the winter travel areas around Crested Butte. We have a brochure that has that map, winter recreation around Crested Butte. That's the one area where we could have an OSVM, an over the snow vehicle use map. The rest of the district, we've yet to do winter travel planning, so that will be done later after our forest plan. Okay, there's some of the responsibilities that we do, just a summary of some of the things we do. This PowerPoint is actually a few years old, so it probably needs to be updated, but I believe that slide is Joe Laughlin out monitoring the mountain bike club's grooming. And they groom for fat bikes, but you can also see they're grooming for classic skiing and skate skiing as well. There we're out doing winter trail maintenance, logging out a Nordic trail. Monitoring outfitter guide use. That's a poker run up above Arrowhead on the left. And then that's Dave Ox, the executive director of Crested Butte Mountain Bike Association. He's showing off his grooming logs to us when he was asked. Okay, education days, and Laura is doing one this weekend with Crested Butte Avalanche Center. We work with them as well as Colorado Avalanche Information Center. That's a past education day with Simba and the Avalanche Center. And then another favorite picture of ours, this is a multi-use photograph at our Snodgrass Gothic trailhead. You can see CBMR in the background, but fat biking, snowshoeing, Nordic skiing, etc. And then we monitor and check on special events. This is the Gothic Mountain Tour. This is a place called Top of the World. It can be a really cold place, and I think it was that day, but we've also been at some of their aid stations. Okay, we do enforcement when we have to. All four of us are forest protection officers, so we can write tickets. And Joe Laughlin here, one of our snow rangers, he's doing registration compliance. And I'm going to steal one of his jokes, but this guy's name tag here says monster. So it's sometimes pretty hard to approach somebody who's got monster on his jacket. Washington Gulch, winter recreation has some special winter travel, and the map will be shown here shortly. But basically, you need to get a free permit, and you put this on your snowmobile, as Washington Gulch. And the permit is just the vehicle for getting a map and being instructed on where you can travel with a snowmobile and where you can't, because we're trying to preserve some of these hybrid backcountry ski areas. Basically, we're protecting the powder, but we do realize that a lot of users use snowmobiles to access these areas. We just don't want people yo-yo skiing with snowmobiles to ski some of that terrain. And then there's an example of our signing between two polygons, a non-motorized polygon and a motorized polygon. That's at Top of the World again. PSAs, public service announcements, we do a lot of them all winter. And Laura is a public information officer in the summer for fire. So she's really good about writing these, and we help her out on that. Some of our information boards, and they actually look better than these. We've actually improved them. These photos are about 4 years old. And we work closely with Crested Butte Avalanche Center. Some more goals we hope to do. Some we're already doing. And then there's the goddess of winter, Norse goddess of winter, Skade, and the Norse god of winter, Uller. And we've named two of our snowmobiles after these two folks. Just one more thing. Go back to this first PowerPoint, and I just want to show some of our other partners. Probably going to miss somebody, and they're probably watching and they'll be upset, but anyway. There's 5 snowmobile clubs, and 2 of them are actually permitted by the Salida Ranger District, but they groom over on our side of the Continental Divide, those 2 lower ones. A couple Nordic clubs, and then other partners we have, Western Colorado University, Silent Tracks, Share the Slate. Those are kind of advocacy groups that we work with. And then Gunnison County is one of our huge partners because they actually operate one of our big trailheads, Kepler Pass Winter Trailhead. They do the plowing and most of the parking management, but we work with them with message boards and so forth. And then Gunnison County has a sustainable tourism and outdoor recreation committee called STORE, and they work with us as well. So that's it. Hopefully my 3 peers, the 2 Joes, Joseph Carlson, Joe Laughlin, and Laura Schmillen, you guys have anything to add? This is your chance. Well, I'm sure they'll speak up.
Yeah, that was great, Greg. Thank you so much for that overview. I know Crested Butte in particular and Gunnison County overall has been a it's a super incredible place to get into the backcountry in the winter, but there's also been a lot of just contention among different user groups and challenging for the agencies to manage those competing uses at times, I'm sure. So one question we had was, can you share the document that you showed at the beginning? If you can email that to me at some point, I can share it with this group, and we'd love to have those PowerPoints too, if you wouldn't mind sharing those, and we can distribute them.
Okay, so the program will work. It's kind of a good example. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be excellent. Cool. Great. Any other questions for Greg? Awesome. Cool. We'll keep moving. Next on my list, I've got Kim from Mammoth Lakes. So our California reps are up next. Kim, if you want to unmute and give us a little overview of what you guys are doing out there, that'd be great.
Good morning. Kim Anaclario with Mammoth Lakes Recreation. We serve Mammoth Lakes area and the rest of the Eastern Sierra along the 395 corridor. We have a trail host program that's been taking shape. So we've been kicking around the idea for quite a while and sort of put things into high gear about 3 seasons ago when the Mammoth Mountain Ski Area, the bike park, allowed electric bicycles on their permit area. And so the way our landscape is the interface between the bike park and the free, or the public access dirt trails, interface is all right there. So we started a trail host program, got some funding through People for Bikes and also Mammoth Mountain Ski Area to have, people on the ground, a friendly face, letting folks know what was accessible to e-bikes, what was off limits. And, like other folks have said, certainly not trail cops out there, but just providing information and educating people so that, trying to reduce any sort of conflict before it happens. So from there, that next winter season, we moved into a winter pilot program at our, we have a free groomed Nordic system right in the heart of town. And so we had 2 folks on the ground cruising around on cross-country skis and fat bikes and sort of, again, just providing information, what uses were allowed, etiquette for walking your dog and being on a bike and staying out of the groom tracks. And it worked really good. We had a lot of great feedback, and continued the program, in this summer with COVID and, the surge everyone has seen in outdoor recreation. The need became so apparent for folks on the ground. So we continued the program again into the summer. Mammoth Lakes Tourism offered some funding. And then the town of Mammoth Lake also just decided this is something that we have to keep our landscape working. It's recreation for all, and having the trail hosts out there has really helped from keeping the lands from getting overrun. So the town put in quite a large amount of funding for a winter program this year. And so we currently have 10 hosts that are on staff and as many volunteers as we can. The staff and volunteers all go through a training with our trails manager, and volunteers shadow a staff host for a couple of shifts before they're set off to be on a shift on their own. And it's all dependent on the person and history and how well they know the area, but that's sort of the general plan that we have working. And so, the main thing is providing information, etiquette, what uses are allowed, but we're also collecting data out on the ground. So I was really excited to hear about the RIMS app already today. What we're using right now is an Esri platform, which isn't available to the public, and it's not 100% real intuitive or user friendly. So, but the main point of the collecting data is starting to build this picture. And so we collect what type of encounters are there, maintenance issues that need attending to, just overall numbers of users, different user groups. I think a lot of the same data that everyone's collecting out there. And, we've been lucky so far to have funding come through sort of just in the nick of time after each segment of this program. So hoping to really solidify something in the future and reach out beyond just Mammoth Lakes, more regionally. And, there's a lot of area to cover. So with other organizations doing similar efforts, making sure that we're coordinating on the front end, and especially on that data collection part, we can just collaborate, work together, and see what sort of uses are going on out there. And again, the main thing is being a face out there on the ground, and just there's so much use, and so many people just don't know things that we take for granted. So it's really been helpful to have a human being that somebody can talk to, and realize that yes, you do need a beacon to go out in the backcountry, and just little tips like that. The education is our big focus.
That's really cool, Kim. That sounds like a really neat kind of hybrid model. One question I had, you said you've got 10 staff. Are they full-time? Are they part-time? How many hours of people are people on the ground do you have a week?
It's not set. We have, it's mostly people's like second jobs, part-time jobs, when they can. But we have the need for it being able to be like a full-time job for somebody. And it's just a seasonal position. So like I said, with the funding that came through from our town this winter, it's viable to be as staffed as we can. We just are having actually trouble finding people to fill the positions.
Gotcha. And do you think some of the engagement from the town was motivated by COVID stuff, or do you think that they would have come through kind of without that added pressure?
I think I can't speculate if they would have come through, but I definitely know they were motivated by COVID. And it might not be the exact right person, organization to take on this program, but they're doing it. We saw the need in our town, and just there was starting to become like stupid conflicts between people, and bad etiquette behavior, people and their animals, and anything you can kind of think of, we sort of started to see. And so it became like we need to solve this problem right now. So, and we also have a lot of that funding is coming from the town. We received a small amount of funding for some trail hosts, part of a California State Parks OHV grant. And so we're expanding out into the greater county, some of the larger, snowmobile centric trailheads, again, providing the etiquette. And another part of that same grant is we're redoing the winter recreation brochure. So updating it with different types of uses and trails, and what's allowed and whatnot. So hopefully that'll be another great tool that our hosts can have to hand out to the public.
Awesome. That's really cool. I know, so many programs looking to diversify funding. It's cool to even have an example and say, look, here's what Mammoth Lakes did, and they came through and were able to have a really big impact. So to be able to take that to other places is super cool.
Yeah, it's been really, really wonderful to have the support of the town.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, any other questions for Kim, either in the chat or feel free to just chime in. Great. Well, thanks for sharing what you're doing out there in California. And yeah, maybe we'll get a chance to have a site visit out there sometime as part of our professional work.
I know, it's so nice to have. Thank you for organizing this. With all this isolation, it's great to hear what people are doing out and about in the country. So thanks again. It's good to hear from everybody.
Cool. Great. All right, next on my list, I've got Alex from Friends of the Inyo.
Yes, good morning. My name is Alex Todd, Stewardship Director for Friends of the Inyo. A logical segue from Kim and Mammoth Lakes, a partner of ours up a little further north. We also, like Kim and Mammoth Lakes Recreation, work on a broad area here. We're a nonprofit on the public lands of the Eastern Sierra, from Death Valley all the way up to the Nevada border up in Bridgeport, and the Humboldt-Tiabi National Forest. So yeah, we mainly work on policy and stewardship. And so this year, with some support from Winter Wildlands Alliance and some other folks, we're going to be doing some winter data collection, some user data collection, and some snow depth out at one trailhead in particular, Rock Creek, which goes well with, we did a similar program 4 years ago, and so we'll be able to compare that data from 4 years ago as well, and have a good data set as to how people are out there using the land. And in particular, I think the impetus for this was we are going through a regional or a forest over snow planning management exercise with the forest and the public. And so this is going to help inform that, have some good data for how people are out there using the land, so that way we can best inform that management plan. So we are going to be doing, kind of like Kim said, and similar to their trail host program, making sure people know how to recreate responsibly out there in the winter time, know the latest avalanche forecasts and stuff like that, but also really taking advantage of getting out there, getting some data on how people are using the land at that specific point. And then, as Kim mentioned, kind of like a region-wide focus at the end of the year of being able to see, throughout the Eastern Sierra, how folks are are using the land at different trailheads. So yeah, we're very excited to be doing that.
Awesome. I appreciate you bringing up the travel management planning process, because I know that's something we've been anticipating for a long time, since the travel planning rule changed a few years ago, and California has kind of been on the forefront of that process. I'm wondering if you can, even just speak a little bit more to how that's been going and where you guys are at in the process.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would kind of punt that to David Page, who I think is here from Winter Wildlands Alliance. I'm our policy person, Jorah Fogg, with Friends of the Inyo, is the one who handles that, and then I handle more the outside side of things. So we're kind of collaborating within our organization here on getting this data for the over snow management. Yeah, by all appearances, it seems to be going well. You know, we're doing a really good job of, as Kim mentioned, using a lot of different organizations and groups in the area to get as much data throughout the entire region as we can, which I think will be really beneficial when that time comes.
Great. And how many folks do you have kind of involved in your program as far as staff versus volunteers, that sort of thing?
Yeah, you know, with COVID, I think we would usually, we're keeping it kind of minimal in order to provide a larger, you know, just a better understanding of what's out there. And so we're just doing weekends from actually starting this weekend to the end of March. You know, hopefully we'll have enough snow to make it that far into March. And but really just using myself and another kind of stewardship aide I have during the summer, who's helping us out this winter, Lindsay Butcher, who's going to be out there. So just the two of us kind of splitting the weekends, going out for 4 or 5 hours, and taking a methodical approach to getting that data and interacting with users. So we were able to keep it, you know, relatively cost effective, just by virtue of, you know, it kind of fits into our program of work already. When Winter Wildlands Alliance and David came to us with this idea, it was pretty easy to justify using already staffed time, and then the help from Winter Wildlands Alliance financially definitely helped us make it a priority for this season. But yeah, I think that answers your question. So just the two of us, and I think in another year we would maybe depend on a little bit more volunteer to maybe flesh out more time on the ground or multiple trailheads, but due to COVID, we decided to keep it kind of constrained.
Totally, that makes sense. Cool. And David offered to just touch on travel management planning in California. And David, maybe, you know, speaking to what these guys are doing as far as the data collection and how that's going to be helpful in the process, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Just super briefly. I mean, we've over the last 3 to 5 years have been through sort of the first iteration of travel management, subpart C planning on 5 forests in Northern California. Plus the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit has also started the process. But those first 5 forests were under some litigation, so they had some constraints, and they were approaching it really very narrowly, just zoning the landscape where snowmobiles were allowed and where they weren't. And so it became super contentious and didn't really allow much discussion about the broader landscape of winter recreation and how that was going to be managed. So Lake Tahoe Basin kind of opened the process up a little bit and have considered some other things like snow play areas. And so we're working with Friends of the Inyo and other stakeholders on the Inyo. We're really trying to help the Inyo approach this, and they're still really at the pre-scoping stage. But we're hoping to get underway with scoping sometime during this calendar year. And we're really hoping that they'll broaden the lens, you know, really wide to look at all winter recreation management, including the resort, including a lot of the guide and outfitter stuff, staging areas, snow play areas. It's really an opportunity to get those maps firmed up in everyone's minds and how we manage people moving around. And I think the, you know, trail host, trail ambassador, snow ranger, law enforcement piece, all of that really needs to be part of the conversation. So, you know, as both Alex and Kim have pointed out, and a bunch of people on the call this morning, one of the things that we've been struggling with is a lack of data, you know, a lack of really an understanding in some areas, who's out there, how many people, what are the impacts, what are the conflicts. And we saw this in earlier iterations of travel planning where they're just, you know, the agency doesn't know. Every user group has its own perspective. So having something that we can really, you know, all agree on and say, this is, you know, these are the areas we need to focus on, and these are some of the solutions, and how can we write that into a big travel management plan? That's our optimistic hope.
Great. Thanks for that. That's helpful to have that context. And yeah, I think it'll come up throughout the discussions today, just as far as data being really maybe more challenging to get in the winter, or just less available overall, right? You've got a bigger kind of dispersion of use, right? People aren't just entering the forest through a trailhead even necessarily. And as you know, as we see increases in use, people are dispersing differently, right? They're trying to get away from the crowds, or trying to find new areas. Technology is changing where motorized users, you know, where they can get to and how they can navigate and travel in the backcountry. So great. Well, thanks. And thanks again to everybody who took a few minutes to speak about your program. We've got a couple minutes left before our first break at 10:30. And so I kind of just want to open it up to anybody who didn't get a chance to speak. If you do currently run a program and want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing that might be different than what we talked about already. But then also kind of open it up to any districts or organizations or managers who don't have a Snow Ranger program currently, but might be interested in one. Can you tell us a little bit about what your needs are, or what your constraints are currently? Or of course, just open it up for any kind of questions and discussions. And so, yeah, feel free to either throw something in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and put your video on to chat for a couple of minutes, we'll try to make this as dynamic as possible.
I guess I'd throw something out. Just hearing the different programs on Teton Pass, Rabbit Ears, Vail Pass. I guess I'd be interested a little bit in how those programs came together initially. You know, I was on a call earlier in the week, or maybe it was late last week, about kind of the mess up on Donner Summit here in California on the Tahoe National Forest, where you know, it's a multi-agency situation where you've got state parks running a snow park. People have to have a permit before they get there. You've got Caltrans doing some of the plowing. You've got the National Forest managing the, you know, the actual trails that are being accessed from that place, and trying to get all those partners together to come up with a solution is really tricky. And then I guess the second part of it, it's really interesting to hear people coming around to the idea that, you know, maybe expanding parking isn't the answer, but how do we enhance parking without expanding it and still retain access? I don't know, lots of questions brought up this morning. Terrific.
Yeah, thanks, David. Wonder if Gary or Kate or Brendan can speak a little bit to kind of the, yeah, how your projects were initiated. How did those, your programs kind of come into being?
Sure, I can go first. Yeah, so the Rabbit Ears Buffalo Pass area, similar to Vail Pass, there was a task force that formed. There was ongoing issues. So it was kind of like, initially they tried to do it through like etiquette and doing it without any regulations and stuff like that. And there just was a history of growing issues between motorized, non-motorized, hybrid, and all this type of stuff. And so a task force formed between the different government organizations that were involved, as well as the different user groups. And you know, that eventually led to doing the environmental assessment and formal public scoping and stuff like that. after that time, there was a bit of falling out amongst the people within the task force after the decision was made. So that original task force doesn't exist anymore. But about a year or a little over a year ago, I think it was, the Route Recreation Roundtable formed in Steamboat, and it was formed originally around more summer recreation, but winter recreation has been an ongoing issue as well. So more recently, we formed a subgroup over winter rec issues, and that's where that website, the Know Before You Go for etiquette and stuff like that, came out of. So yeah, we have some different collaborative groups, and that's kind of, seems like getting everyone on board is really important if you're trying to make management changes and stuff. We've got some other groups in North Route as well that we're working on some other issues.
Great, thanks, Brendan. Yeah, and I think we've seen in similar or in other areas, you know, you may have a summer kind of recreation organization or group or stakeholder group, then realize that they don't just have to deal with the bikes and the OHVs and the summer stuff, but they kind of eventually transition to cover winter as well. We've seen that a couple places in Colorado. Gary or Kate, either of you want to chime in on kind of how things got started in your area? And we had a chat wondering if there's anybody from the Rio Grande, and I know Bryce Hoffman, I might put you on the spot if you're able to talk at all about the recreation work that's been happening over in your area.
Hey, good morning. I just jumped back on after getting a cup of coffee. What information are you looking for?
Yeah,
Rio
so
Grande?
our question generally was, you know, how are these programs kind of getting started initially? Brendan Kelly was talking about kind of a recreation roundtable that's happening up in Steamboat, and I think there's maybe some similar work happening on the Rio Grande and around Wolf Creek. So Greg from Gunnison called you out to see if you could give us any more information.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, so I'm the new guy on the forest in recreation, and we have a trails roundtable that primarily focuses on summer use, and I would like to transition that to winter recreation as well. I just held our first cross-country trails meeting this last it's all good, Greg. I just held our first cross-country trails meeting with our different clubs, and saw a lot of benefit from connecting everyone together. And really, from what I've heard, we're just now starting to see more use on the forest. The San Juans are a great place to social distance. So typically what we've done in the past is, I mean, set a base measurement for use, and then monitored from there. And I mean, the reality is it's reactive management rather than proactive management. So I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at for now, and what the future holds, we're not sure.
Great, thanks, Bryson. Thanks for letting us just kind of throw you in there.